They say you never really understand your neighbors until one of them tries to claim something that's yours. It all began a few months after I moved into my aunt's old farmhouse in Ridgewood Meadows. It's a quiet place nestled beyond the hills, surrounded by pine trees, wind chimes, and people who mostly kept to themselves. I had just finished fixing up the pool she left me, something my aunt had put together with her own hands years ago. It wasn't just a pool. It felt like the last tangible connection to her I had. But then came Evelyn. She was hard to miss, platinum blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and a clipboard always at her side. The type who probably sips mimosas before noon and runs the neighborhood like she's an army commander. She appeared one afternoon, just as I was clearing out the leaves from the pool, and without even a greeting, told me that I need to unlock the pool gate for the weekend. She said there were guests expected. I stared at her, confused. Guests? Her smile was cold and calculated, like she was savoring something. You new around here, huh? Well, that pool's part of the shared facilities in our community association. Now, I wasn't a part of the association. My aunt had made sure of that years ago, with the land being specifically exempted in writing by the county. I mentioned this to her, but she wasn't fazed. You might think you're exempt, she said, jotting something down on her clipboard. But these things change. Our neighborhood works better when we all follow the same rules. With that, she walked off like she just delivered the final word. I should have known that wasn't the last I'd see of her. At first, I thought it was just a power trip. Maybe she was one of those retired board members who got off on telling people what to do. But then came the letters. Notices stuffed in my mailbox about violating pool access rules, threatening fines and penalties. Again, I wasn't part of the community association. I hadn't signed anything. But Evelyn didn't care. And she didn't stop there. A few days later, I came home to find a group of teens doing cannonballs off the diving board. Evelyn said it was fine, they told me. The next weekend, I found a bunch of middle-aged women lounging by the pool like they were at a resort. When I asked one who gave them permission, she just shrugged and said, "Isn't this for everyone in the neighborhood?" That's when I decided to build a fence. Not some flimsy chain-link one, but a real, sturdy cedar fence with a digital lock and cameras watching every corner. The very next day, Evelyn showed up with a locksmith and a spare key, claiming my new lock was an illegal barrier to community access. The locksmith took one look at my face and walked away without even saying a word. I knew I had to fight back with more than just words. I dug through my aunt's old paperwork and found every document that proved I was in the clear. Even uncovered a court order from the 90s stating that my aunt's land was never subject to the community association's rules. They tried to claim her garden shed as part of the shared property, and she had fought them over that too. I printed everything, backed it up, and called the county clerk's office to get everything notarized. Then came the kicker, security footage of Evelyn sneaking people through the back gate with a spare key. I changed the locks again, and that's when things took a nasty turn. Evelyn showed up at my gate one morning, screaming like a banshee. I calmly told her to leave my property, and she immediately pulled out her phone to call the cops. When they arrived, one officer told me to step back while the other spoke to me. I handed him a thick folder full of paperwork and evidence. He flipped through it, then turned to Evelyn and said, "Ma'am, you have no jurisdiction here." Evelyn started fake crying. I showed them the footage, and they radioed for backup. But that wasn't the end. What she didn't know was that I had already filed a restraining order, and the process server was just minutes away. When the process server arrived, Evelyn froze in place. Then, she bolted, running across my neighbor's yard like she was trying out for a role in a reality TV show chase scene. They caught her, and she came back, disheveled and without her usual smug demeanor. The server handed her the paperwork, and one of the officers told her, "If you step foot on this property again, we'll arrest you." That should have been the end, but Evelyn wasn't the type to let go easily. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. My pool cover was slashed. My mailbox was ripped off its post. Someone even poured an absurd amount of chlorine into my pool. Motion cameras caught a figure sneaking around at 3 a.m., evading the lights. It was blurry, but I knew the score. I upgraded everything: steel mailbox, thermal cameras, even drones with night vision. And just as I was ready to take everything to the sheriff, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. No stamp. Just a red X drawn across the envelope. Inside, the message read, "We don't care about your documents. The pool is ours. Watch your back." That's when I realized this wasn't just Evelyn. It was bigger. I got a tip from Travis, the nervous board member who had been lurking in the background. One night, he came over and whispered to me like he was confessing his sins. "There's a slush fund," he said. "Greg runs it. The treasurer. People pay under the table for perks, like access to your land." Greg was the same guy who had come to my house, pretending to be friendly, asking me to work something out with him. The same Greg who'd told me, "You'll regret this," as he left. Sure enough, one night, I saw a truck ram into my fence, destroy my gate, and drive off before I could get the license plate. The next night, I caught Greg on camera pouring gasoline on my deck. The police arrived just as he was about to light the match. They arrested him, and that's when everything changed. I called a local news station, Channel 8, and sent them everything: footage, paperwork, and a restraining order. The crew showed up, and I told my story on camera. I'm not part of their community association. I never was. And they've been threatening, trespassing, and vandalizing because I won't hand over my pool. The story went viral. People from all over the region came forward, revealing similar experiences with Evelyn and her group. Same tactics, same intimidation, same exploitation. Turns out, Evelyn had done this before. She had been sued, fled, and started over again. A suburban tyrant with a clipboard and a vendetta. The pressure grew. My lawyer, Vanessa, and I filed a motion to dissolve the community association. We had enough. Criminal charges, financial mismanagement, harassment, even arson. The judge ruled in our favor, froze the accounts, and dissolved the board. Greg was still in custody, and Evelyn was caught trying to forge a deed to my land and claim it as abandoned property. But here's the twist. A couple of months later, I got a letter from the county. A neighbor had passed away, and with no heirs or will, the property was in limbo. But since I had helped expose the community association's attempt to steal his land, the court granted me the adjacent property. Evelyn tried to take my pool. Instead, she handed me 5 extra acres. Now, I sit on my porch at night, drink in hand, watching the water shimmer in the moonlight. No threats, no strange vehicles, just peace and the occasional laughter of kids playing in the distance. Sometimes I think about that red X, and sometimes I wonder if there's still someone out there watching and planning. Because right before Greg was arrested, I received one last message. Not from Evelyn, but from someone else. It said, "She's gone, but I'm not. Maybe the story isn't over. But I'm ready for whatever comes next. This land, this house, this pool, it's mine. And nothing, not a clipboard nor a grudge, is going to take it away from me." In the end, what began as a simple power struggle over a backyard pool became a fight for something far greater. The right to stand up against those who believe they can take what isn't theirs. Evelyn may have underestimated me, but in the face of her manipulation, threats, and underhanded tactics, I stood firm, armed with the truth and the law. What started as a quiet life in a peaceful neighborhood quickly revealed the darker side of those who hide behind a veil of authority. Yet despite everything she tried to throw my way, the intimidation, the vandalism, the attempts to steal, I didn't back down. Instead, I gathered evidence, rallied the community, and fought for my home. The victory wasn't just mine. It was for everyone who's been bullied by a system that plays by its own rules, for everyone who's had their space encroached upon by someone with too much power and too little conscience. Now, I can finally sit on my porch, knowing I protected what's mine. But as I look out across the land, I know this fight was more than a personal victory. It was a stand for fairness, justice, and the simple right to say no when someone tries to take what you've earned.